Welcome back to the Angry Man Podcast with Jason and Greg. So, Jay, the initial press conference started today between Keith Thurman and Tim Tszyu, as well as Rolly Romero and Pitbull Cruz. So, I gotta say, Jay, I gotta keep it real with you, Jay. When I think about Keith Thurman, it was actually really good to see Keith Thurman back in the limelight. Keith Thurman back at a press conference, getting ready for a fight. It's been long overdue for Keith Thurman to be back in the ring. And I'm excited for Keith. You know, Keith does bring a certain level of energy as it relates to any kind of boxing cards. Some people think that, you know, some of the stuff he says is corny, mostly Errol Spence. But I personally find Keith Thurman to be thoroughly entertaining. And he did not disappoint today with some of the energy that he brought to the press conference. Now, one thing that was very interesting was just the overall energy and the mind state of Tim Tszyu. Basically talking about he's going to knock Keith Thurman out and really calling a lot of these other fighters, you know, pussies because they're not willing to get in the ring. And when you think about what he's been able to do over the last few years, or at least the last year, he's been in the ring constantly, taking risk, making sure he gets the biggest and best fights he can at the division. So you got to give Tim Tszyu a lot of love for that and respect for what he has been doing over the last several months. Now, Keith Thurman talked a little bit about the fact that, you know, he's like a Mexican that was born in Australia, basically talking about the slow feet and that Keith Thurman has never lost to a Mexican fighter. One of the things that I noticed soon as they ended the press conference and they went nose to nose and, you know, they did the face off, it was clear to me that Keith Thurman is smaller than Tim Tszyu, and it's noticeable to me. Tim Tszyu is just a broader guy, wider shoulders. Keith looked a little bit petite standing next to him, and of course, Keith is going to have to. He looked petite, man, and so Keith is going to have to move his feet in order to get out of the way of Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu said, "Don't run like a gazelle." But at the end of the day, Keith Thurman is going to have to utilize movement in order to be successful in this fight. So I know we're not going to give a prediction at the moment because, of course, we need to let this thing build up. But is it possible? When you think about the long layoff of Keith Thurman, the fact that he hasn't been in the ring in like 2 years, and he's coming back against a really, really game opponent at 35 years old. I don't know about you, Jay, but the older I got, man, the stiffer these joints got. And hell, it's hard to get up and run after not running for a week, let alone a year. So you tell me, Jay, do you think Keith Thurman may have bitten off a little more than he can chew? Now, I want to give you this little bit of a caveat here because I know, you know, you highly respect this individual and so do I. But Leonard Ellerby actually believes that Keith Thurman is going to win this fight. I'm not saying to give a prediction or anything like that. We'll wait. But is it possible that Keith Thurman is bitten off more than he can chew, just considering the fact that he has not been in the ring for so long?
It's possible. I mean, inactivity has been killing every boxer. Almost every fighter that's coming off a year or two layoffs, they've been losing. They've been taking an L. Yeah. You know, for them, or they don't look good in that performance. So, I mean, I think what gives Keith some type of advantage over Tim, his experience, and he's quick-footed. You know, he has quick feet, quick hands, and that's something that Tim hasn't really dealt with fully like that. You know, I'm interested to see how that's going to play out. Even with Keith being out for 2 years, his experience, him being quick-footed, it's going to play a part in his fight. Now, the thing is, how long can he last with that? You know, we see the Keith Thurman from when he fought Pacquiao, where he was able to get on the back foot and run around and get away from Pacquiao when Pacquiao hurt him. Take the mouthpiece out of his mouth when he takes a body shot, so he can get away from Jose Lopez. Can he do that? We don't. That's going to be the interesting part. You know, now it's funny because Tim was like, "Don't run, don't run like a gazelle." So Tim's trying to goad him into being, you know, a Mexican type fight. That's the dumbest thing for Keith to do. Keith ain't gonna be in the pocket. He ain't gonna be there. That's not his game. Never has been. Never will be. And for a fighter like Tim, who's gonna kind of be like a slugger, that'll work right into his game plan. Now Keith did say that he was like, it's like, you know, I can beat you by being tricky. If I can trick you doing something, I can hit you easy. So it seems like he's gonna be, you know, the same old Keith, you know, that he was, but 2 years removed from being in the ring in a competitive match. He's been on a fat camp for how many years? The last couple of years, he's been on a fat camp because 1 minute he was losing the weight again, then he started gaining it back. His wife had a baby, he gained the weight, then he started losing it. So we don't know what we're gonna get from Keith, but he's talking, so that's a good thing. You know, I hate the last time he talked like this about I ain't never lost to no one like Pacquiao, or he's too small, he's too little. He kind of did the same thing. His feet are too slow. Okay, Keith. Last time you did all that, Pacquiao put them things on you. He was older than you.
What he said, dinosaur arms or something? T-Rex
what
arms
you
or something?
He did exactly that to his head and dropped him. It was a close fight. Keith came rebounded from that, but you know, this is Keith. Like you said, he's 35, 2 years removed. His last fight was on February 5th again in 2022 against Mario Barrios.
That's what I'm looking at right now.
You know, 2 years ago. And Tim seems like he's on a mission right now. Tim's on a mission. He's hungry, he seems. You know, I think it's going to be an intriguing matchup when we come to see how things go as their training camps and they get closer. Then we'll make that fight prediction. But one thing I still don't like about this is the fact that if I'm Keith, if I'm going up to 154 to fight a young, hungry fighter like Tim Tszyu, I need to be for their belt.
Yeah,
I want their belt.
I don't get it.
You know, I know the sanctioning body said no to it, but I'd have fought my ass off to try to get it for the title, because it's like, what's the point? We fight at 155. I've never fought any higher than 147. My first fight is against the champion, and I can't get his belt if I beat him. You know, I'm gonna get a good payday, but you know, I want both. But Keith is also 35, so it could be the payday that lured him into it. So I mean, but I think we needed Keith Thurman. You know, to your point, or to Errol Smith's point, he's funny, but he is kind of corny with some stuff. But it's needed. We needed someone like Keith to come back to the game to liven it up a little bit. And him on that card along with Rolly, it's going to be an interesting press conference of upcoming in their interviews and stuff like that. So I'm with it, you know, but this is going to be a tall task for Keith.
I think it's going to be a tall task for Keith, and I think the Rolly Romero versus Pitbull Cruz fight is going to be interesting. I think we can come back and do that one maybe next, because I definitely want to spend some time specifically on that fight as well. But Keith, again, glad to see Keith back in the ring. Glad to see him in there with a name that is recognizable and somebody who is, who I would consider elite right now at 154 pounds. Interestingly enough, Tszyu mentioned that he was actually in negotiations with Terrence Crawford prior to getting the actual Keith Thurman fight. So I have to wonder why would he make that decision to go with Keith Thurman if Terrence Crawford's name was available, considering Crawford is would be considered a bigger name at this point, right? You know, you would think. And then he was also in training camp for Lubin. So you're in camp for Lubin, negotiating with Crawford, and end up with Keith Thurman. Just kind of weird stuff. So you guys tell us what you think in the comment section in regards to this particular fight. The more I think about the fight, the more it grows on me. I'm not going to lie. I'm still struggling with it being a pay-per-view, but at the same time, I do understand why Amazon Prime and the PBC may be unwilling to, or would want to get their pay-per-view chops, legs up under them, if you will, so that they make sure that when they have bigger fights in the future, everything is working accordingly. So I could understand that as well. You guys tell us what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to hate, like, comment, and subscribe. This is the Angry Man Podcast on Sports Media, and we are